New World is about 3 months old now, and while we're waiting for Amazon Game Studios to fix the game's many issues, I thought it would be worth having a look at some of the interesting content that they have planned for the game that has been data mined, and it's legitimately interesting to see what they're working on. So let's talk about it. Hey, this video is brought to you by you. Let me know in the comments down below, out of all of this content, what you're most excited for. I'm really interested to see whether people are more excited for weapons or gear, what they're actually really interested in. So do let me know in the comments down below. Let's go. Firstly, all of this data mine content is still in development and it may not actually be released into the game. It could all be scrapped or Jeff Bezos could turn off the service tomorrow, who knows? There is a link in the description down below if you want to peruse the content yourself. And we'll start off with the fun stuff, and that is weapons. The first weapon is the daggers, which is dual wielding one-handed weapons for close ranged melee combat and short range throwing attacks. The interesting thing about the daggers is that they have a blades tree and a stealth tree. Now, just to temper your expectations on stealth, I wouldn't expect to be too developed here, not something like an Elder Scrolls Online stealth system, right? It's probably just going to be that if you attack someone that is full health and already not in combat, you'll do extra damage, but there isn't going to be like a fully fledged stealth system I wouldn't expect in New World, or else that'd already be in the game. My own thoughts. The blunderbuss is next, and we also get a look at the mastery icons for their skill trees. We have previously seen in data mined content the different names of some of the abilities, so I think the blunderbuss is pretty far along and it may be one of the next weapons we get along with the daggers, but this is going to be a valuable add to the game because we absolutely desperately need more physical ranged weapons other than the bow and the musket. The next two are both related, and that's the one-handed club and the two-handed club. These will be blunt weapons, so strike damage, kind of like the Warhammer. I don't necessarily understand why there is a two-handed club and a one-handed club unless the one-handed club can also be used with a shield to make it some kind of a tank weapon. They feel kind of redundant to have a one-handed and a two-handed if you can't actually wield the one-handed with a shield. The next is the pistols, which we don't have too much information on other than a couple of images, but any physical range damage that we have is a great add to the game. There is also the greatsword, which seems like it may be the furthest out as we don't really have anything other than a single image of the greatsword, and the celestial gauntlets, which do have a description. The gauntlets that allow the wearer to summon magical restorative forces. So probably a gauntlet version of like a life staff, and it's mostly going to be based around healing. I guess similar to the void gauntlet, except maybe like a light version. Maybe they'll come with some other different types of damage, who knows. As a separate side note, I don't really know if the game needs 7 new weapons. We've already got a fair amount of weapons. We definitely need another physical ranged weapon like the blunderbuss, but we also need like a tank weapon, like another sword and shield or sword and club, whatever it actually works out to be. I don't know if the game needs 7 new weapons on top of all the weapons we already have. That just seems like chaos from a balancing perspective, and balance in the game is already a bit all over the place, especially with the Great Axe just wreaking havoc in PvP constantly since day one. So if we add another 7 weapons on top of that, balancing may get even more complex than it already is. Next, we will talk about the PvE content because there is a lot planned for the game, especially expeditions. There's 6 new expeditions that are being worked on, and it looks like the next first 2 that we will see is Isabella's Lair for the Shattered Mountain and the Enid, which will be in the new zone of Brimstone Sands, which we'll talk about in a little bit. There are 4 others being worked on: the Eridus Caverns in Restless Shore, the Unholy Depths in the Great Cleave, the Frozen Passage in the Great Cleave, and Barnacles and Black Powder, which sounds super cool, in Cutlass Key. So there's 6 different expeditions that are in development. Now, my main issue with expeditions as a whole is that there isn't really a real reason to do the lower level expeditions at max level unless you're helping people get through them. And funnily enough, they are working on a way to fix this with dungeon mutations, which is kind of like the Mythic Plus system for World of Warcraft. There's going to be 10 tiers for each dungeon. There will also be different ranks, so as you level up each rank or tier, you'll then be able to try and do the next tier. On top of that, they're also adding mutations, so there's going to be 16 mutations, assuming that all of these make it into the game. These will affect the dungeon in different ways. The one description we have is that it will be like a curse on the mob. So if you run out of curse resistance, you will drop a silent zone that detonates, dealing damage to players and creatures. The curse resistance is shared among all members of your group. So just different effects to the dungeons to make them more repeatable And hopefully with that, it'll come with new rewards, because I feel like if you're leveling up this ranking system, maybe we get extra higher gear score or just different ways of actually being rewarded for doing this content. And if you're looking for people to find to do dungeons, there is going to be a dungeon finder that they're working on. There's some strings that have been listed that show that they are working on a dungeon finder, so that you don't have to just stand at the entrance and scream that you need help to do the dungeon. You'll actually be able to queue for it. Hopefully this will also be cross-world, because my world is completely dead at this point. So hopefully you'll actually be able to queue with people across other worlds, even in the same region, just so that you can finish these quicker rather than having to wait. And the next big thing is the new zone, the Brimstone Sands, which we have known about for a little while. There's a lot of screenshots that we have seen from this area, and it's a new 60+ area in the west. It takes heavy inspiration from ancient Egypt and the Romans and kind of mixes those two cultures together. This is going to see a lot of pyramids and sands and deserts and all those kind of creatures like scorpions and scarabs and serpents, and mixing all that stuff. It's going to be a really interesting zone, and I hope that there's actually going to be quality content in the zone as well that adds new rewards or new gear to the game to really make it worthwhile actually logging in and playing around with this new zone. As a side note, it does seem like mounts are something that is coming. There is some strings, they're mentioning horse gear, so food for your horse, an equipable saddle and bridle, different cosmetics that you can put on these horses, which we don't have in the game currently, so it seems like mounts are in development to some regard, so it may be interesting to see what happens there. And the last big thing that is coming is new cosmetics. We're getting a ton of cosmetics that don't really need to go through directly. If you're interested to see all of the different cool stuff that's coming to the cash store, there is that link in the description, but these include things like weapon sets, armors, emotes, housing and decor items, as well as new camp skins. So you'll be able to change the skin of your camp to these big obtrusive looking towers that kind of seem pointless, but I don't know, like they feel like they're going to be really obtrusive and in the way, especially when there are camps like literally littered all over the map, and especially in like the PvP areas, everyone's chucking their camps around. It just feels like it's going to affect performance, but new cosmetics are always good. You can't really complain there. So I guess the big question with all of this is, when can we expect it to come? And for the most part, I think some of this is further along than others. Like the new cosmetics, chances are that once the items are created, they could just be added to the cash store periodically as they come. Mounts feel to me like they're going to be a long way away before we actually see something come with that. They did make the travel speed increases on the road recently, so you can move a little bit faster on the roads, but I don't think that mounts will be in any time soon. The new zone, we have heard, has been in development for a long time. I feel like that's probably going to be the next big content drop, will be the Brimstone Sands, probably adding in its dungeon as well, the Innerd as well. And in terms of weapons, I mean, who knows really? Like we got the Void Gauntlet, which we knew about well before launch, that was coming as well. We've also known about the daggers and the blunderbuss for a while, so they're probably going to be the next two weapons that'll get added to the game. Whether they get added together or separately, we don't really know at this stage, but from my expectations, I would expect to get the Brimstone Sands next, and then probably a weapon after that, because we just got a weapon. The next thing to add from my expectations would be actual PvE content into the game. Hopefully the dungeon mutations aren't too far away either, to give you a legitimate reason to do those dungeons over and over again, especially with the new expertise system. Something that is missing from this big list is PvP content. There's no new arenas, no battlegrounds, no mention of any of that kind of content, and PvP is a big focus for the game, especially with the wars and everything. It'd be nice to get a smaller scale PvP, something like arenas or battlegrounds. Hopefully we'll see something like that in the future. But that is everything that's being worked on in New World right now. Let me know in the comments below what you're most excited for. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.